Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. The academic procession will now begin. We are pleased to present to you today's honorees.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please be seated. My name is Mark Gary, and I have the honor of being the Executive Vice Chancellor and the Chief Operating Officer of the Jewish Theological Seminary, and I'm just delighted to welcome all of you here today. Mr. Alan Levine, who is the chair of the JTS Board of Trustees, was supposed to be here today and presiding over these ceremonies. Unfortunately, he took ill. He sends his deepest regrets. I know how much Alan loves Jewish music and loves chazanut and chazanim, and I know that he is truly disappointed he could not be here with you today. We wish him a refuah shlema. On behalf of the board, the administration, and the faculty, I'm delighted to welcome you to this special convocation. I'm also delighted to be joined today on the platform by Professor Arnold M. Eisen, the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary, and by Chazan Elisa Pomerantz-Borough, the President of the Cantors Assembly. Allow me to begin by thanking the wonderful musicians who accompanied today's processional. This talented duo consists of Chazan Jeff Warschauer and his spouse, Deborah Strauss, and it gives us great pride that Jeff is a graduate of our H.L. Miller Cantorial School. Now, if you haven't done so already, please engage in that time-honored Jewish ritual and silence your cell phones. And for that, I thank you. Gil Essring, a student in our H.L. Miller Cantorial School, will now lead us in the Star-Spangled Banner and Hatikva. Gil?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים.
Thank you, Gil. Please be seated. Today's convocation and the conferral of honorary degrees represents a true milestone in the careers of those seated here. These leaders are devoted to our traditions and to our people. Individually and as part of our movement and of the communities which they serve, they have helped meet the religious needs of today's Jews. Importantly, these honorees also prepare the way for a flourishing future. The broad and meaningful contributions of these individuals are reflected in the composition of today's audience. In addition to proud family members, we are also joined today by officers and members of the congregations and organizations served by our honorees. Your presence is especially welcomed as it is a natural outgrowth of the respect for the honorees and their efforts on behalf of the Jewish community. I am now pleased to call upon Rabbi Rachel Ain, spiritual leader of Sutton Place Synagogue, our gracious host, to offer a few words. Rabbi Ain.
Welcome. It is my honor as the rabbi of this congregation, on behalf of myself and Cantor Dov Karen and our entire synagogue, to welcome you to this extraordinary event. I am so pleased to see so many friends and colleagues, and particularly moved that Gil Ezring just chanted the anthems for us, since Gil spends a lot of time here in our community, often leading us in prayer, and was the inaugural cantor for our young professional service a few years ago. This past Shabbat, Cantor Karen ushered in the announcement of the upcoming new month, asking God to bestow God's graces on all of us by giving us a month that is good and blessed, peaceful and fulfilling, full of abundance, and a life that displays a love of Torah. Welcoming you here today exemplifies how we can bring these hopes and dreams, desires and prayers into our communities. Through your voices, spirit, kavanah, power, and leadership, the role of the Chazan can help elevate our prayers not only up to God, but between each of us, thereby reminding us that it is in our power to make this a truly good month. I wish each of the recipients and their families a tremendous mazel tov, and a congratulations to JTS and the Cantors Assembly for all that you have done to make this moment happen. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rabbi Ain, for those beautiful words, and I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the staff of Sutton Place Synagogue for hosting us here today, and in so doing, helping us to celebrate our honorees. JTS is pleased to partner with the Cantors Assembly in today's convocation, and it now gives me great pleasure to call upon Chazan Elisa Pomerantz-Borough, President of the Cantors Assembly, to share a few words of greeting.
Thank you. I still am shaking from the sounds of the anthems, hearing this group singing. I was here about a year ago when the rabbis received their honorary doctorates, and the room did not sound quite the same. I want to begin by thanking each one of you. Thank you for your service to God, for your ability to bring people closer to Jewish community, to advance the cause to which we have devoted our lives. Thank you for igniting a passion for Jewish life in every soul, so that we can all live lives of meaning and fulfillment. It is not possible to measure the importance of our sacred calling and our profound influence on those around us. Imagine, just for a moment, How many lives have been touched by all of my colleagues today? Every one of you makes a difference. You make a big difference. You make a difference in ways that you will never fully understand, because you will never get all of the praise and all of the compliments that you so fully deserve. We all know the incredible impact each one of us has on our community. We are involved in people's lives at critical moments when no one else can affect the change that we can. We receive phone calls from people in distress who need us. We are called to the bedside for vidui when our own hearts are breaking. We drop everything to help someone else in crisis. We feel the indescribable pain of comforting new parents in the NICU. We run from a bris to a funeral, to a bar mitzvah rehearsal, to a suicidal congregant with a clean suit, a box of tissues, and a prayer, always at the ready. We share tears of sorrow and tears of joy. We know the utter bliss of training a new Torah reader and witnessing their personal revelation. We know the immense satisfaction of training a student with special needs to become a bar or bat mitzvah. We are the vessels for the outpouring of emotional needs. We inspire others with our words, with our voices, and with our spirits. We give voice to the dreams and aspirations of our people through masterful interpretation of Jewish liturgy. We shepherd both families and individuals through all of the joys and heartbreaks of the Jewish life cycle with compassion and sensitivity. We represent our shuls and our communities and our calling everywhere we go, and I mean everywhere. Sometimes it's over a cup of coffee or even a glass of scotch. We struggle to find balance, and there are times when we question our value, and there are times when we feel overwhelmed and emotional. There are a lot of times when we feel stressed out, overburdened, frustrated, and underappreciated. And yet, we know that our lives are a gift, that we are blessed to be serving as clay kodesh, as holy vessels. We are grateful to have the ability to fulfill our calling as spiritual leaders. As the authentic voice of Jewish worship, we serve as the living bridge spanning generations past, present, and future, so that all ages may come together and forge profound and lasting connections with each other and with God. Our hands, your hands, have blessed thousands and thousands of people. And so, on behalf of the Cantors Assembly, my prayer for you is that you will have many more years of good health and blessing and meaning and wisdom and love. Mazel tov.
Thank you, Chazan Pomeranz-Borough, for enriching today's ceremony with your thoughts, your words, and your presence, and might I add also your great, wonderful sense of humor. I am now pleased to call on today's honorees and the chorus of the H.L. Miller Cantorial School, who will sing Sim Shalom, a classic of our liturgy. Their joining together in this prayer for peace beautifully represents the continuing power of Jewish tradition through the generations. They will be conducted by Chazan Natasha J. Hirschhorn, my Chazan, and accompanied by Elizabeth Rogers. Just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much for that inspiring performance. And a special thank you to Chazan Hirschhorn and Ms. Rogers for leading it. Thank you. I now have the honor of introducing to you the 7th Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary and the President of its faculties, Professor Arnold M. Eisen, who will deliver the Convocation address.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Welcome, everyone. It's a privilege for me to be with you on this happy occasion. I first want to say a heartfelt mazel tov to the Chazanim we're honoring today, and say thank you for your service to the cause that means so much to all of us. I also want to thank your friends and families, not just for joining us today, but for the support they gave our honorees over so many years. And finally, I want to thank Rabbi Ain, Cantor Kern, and Sutton Place Synagogue for their warm hospitality, and invite everyone here today to join us for the next cantorial convocation, which will be held, God willing, in the beautiful light court of JTS's renewed campus, which is due to open in the fall of 2019. Look forward to seeing all of you there. I received a notice from the Humanities Center at Stanford University the other day announcing a lecture with the intriguing title, Conditions for the Possibility of Rock and Roll, an Exercise in Cultural History. So looking ahead to the talk I'd be giving today, I immediately started wondering what a similar exercise might involve if the subject were cantorial music in the contemporary North American synagogue. What are the conditions of its possibility? What would be relevant to its cultural history? My first step in this thought process was to consult the resident JTS expert on rock and roll, our own alumnus of Shanana, Provost Alan Cooper. He commented astutely that one necessary precondition for the emergence of rock and roll in the 50s, maybe in the late 40s, was the success of white entrepreneurs in using mass media, AM radio and then TV, and white artists like Elvis to, quote, tame race music, as it was called then, and to turn it into an anthem of post-World War II adolescent rebellion. My second step in research, being a scholar used to poring through arcane sources, gathering footnotes, and amassing bibliography, was of course to turn to Wikipedia. And there I learned, in addition to the point that Alan Cooper had made, that, quote, rock and roll evolved from African-American musical styles such as gospel, jump blues, jazz, boogie-woogie, and rhythm and blues, along with country music, and it arrived at a time of considerable technological change soon after the development of the electric guitar and the amp and the evolution of the 45 RPM record. So I'm asking myself and you, the cultural history of cantorial music, what are its preconditions? What is necessary for its continuity and thriving? I would argue, as a stipulation, that the cultural history of cantorial music in this country is very different, of course, but no less complex, no less shaped by wider social and cultural trends, and not unrelated to the impact of other musical traditions that our ears take in every day of the week, especially rock and roll. Consider first a cultural development that we, as leaders of the Jewish community, have to reckon with daily in all sorts of respects, namely that contemporary Americans, according to all the data, do not want to join anything. They don't want to join any organization. They are disaffiliating rapidly from religious institutions in particular. We should not be surprised if they leave synagogues. They also have an ever shorter attention span and are used to regular doses of novelty and excitement. Think rock concerts and streaming TV on demand, neither of which is usually satisfied by 3-hour synagogue services on Saturday morning. Consider, too, that millennials and the age cohorts that come after them seem to share baby boomers' aversion to commanding authorities, and like them, repeatedly proclaim and demonstrate their status as, quote, sovereign selves, end quote. It's hard to secure commitment these days to the notion of mitzvah, fundamental to any kind of Judaism to conservative Judaism. Millennials also declare aversion to boundaries of any sort. They feel no special attachment to the Jewish people. More and more of them seem to want their synagogues to be open to everyone, regardless of religious belief or ethnic origin, and they consider the identities that many of us take for granted to be tribal, atavistic, or merely irrelevant to them. I believe Judaism is threatened on this count as well. Sociologist Marshall Sclair perceptively called conservative Judaism an ethnic church in his classic study of the 1950s, and I think that is still the case. To an important degree, conservative Jews of my generation and the one before mine have regarded the synagogue as a way to express and deepen attachment to the Jewish people, to affirm that Am Yisrael Chai, and to work to keep it so. That commitment is increasingly rare, and to many young people today, it is problematic. But I did not come here today on this joyous occasion to depress you, or merely to play cultural historian. Far from it. I am committed to the project of conservative Judaism, and particularly to the synagogue, even as I recognize that both must change substantially over the next couple of decades if they are to remain vital and retain the critical mass of adherents that vitality requires. I believe that we conservative Jews can do that because I know that we already are doing it in a significant number of synagogues, schools, camps, youth groups, programs in Israel, etc. Needless to say, but I will say it anyway, JTS is truly thriving today, and it is not alone in this respect. One reason for our success, I think, is the changes we have instituted over the past few years in response to contemporary changes and getting ahead of those changes. And another reason for our success is the continuity on which we have insisted despite the changes going on around us. I don't need to tell musicians and lovers of music that tradition and change is not a slogan, but an operating principle and practice, not a dichotomy, but a synergy. Faithfulness to an artistic or a religious tradition does not mean handing down what we have received unchanged, or simply copying what has gone before. This is true in painting, in music, and in religion. One does not need a Bitzalel to build the tabernacle if all that's required is measuring boards accurately and sawing them straight. We sometimes innovate boldly in the service of tradition, and sometimes we cleave to what exists and pass it on largely unchanged, all the while supplying new inflections, elements, meanings, or rationales, because that too is part of what it means to be faithful. Certainly, every chazan that I know does exactly that. Betzalel is required. Artistry is required, because there is no science to the business of faithfulness through change. And because, in significant measure, adherence to tradition in our day is not secured by great books or great musical performances or by persuasive philosophical or theological arguments. It comes from experiences. Experiences of capital C community, experiences of capital M meaning, and encounters with God, with the holy, with love. Chasanim know this. Your profession involves providing those experiences on as regular a basis as is humanly possible. Musicologists and sociologists more knowledgeable than I am will need to figure out how sacred Jewish music, as it exists in 2018 and as it will exist in 2028 and beyond, differs and must differ from what it was in 1968, let alone 1928. I know that rock music and folk have both played a part, as has the Conferral movement. The unprecedented availability of Jewish music and every other kind of music, thanks to CDs and now iTunes and YouTube. There are other elements too, contributing to our taste for and against the chazanut of the past in 2018. For example, the changing fortunes of nostalgia. Suffice it to say The Chazanut cannot remain unaffected by the changes sweeping every other aspect of our Judaism and our lives. It is part of a larger cultural history. We must understand what makes it possible or impossible for contemporary Jews to hear or listen to music of particular sorts in particular settings, to enter into such music, to be moved by it, and perhaps to thrill to it, as my wife and I were thrilled last week by a performance of the New York City Philharmonic of the symphonic suite that Leonard Bernstein composed from the amazing music of West Side Story. Again, I believe that we conservative Jews can do this, because I know from personal experience that we do it already in many cases. Great cantors and shlichei tzibur, in tune with real communities of daveners, provide highs of religious experience that are precious to the Jews they touch. We must make it our business to do this more regularly in the years to come. Let me conclude with a brief reflection on a musical experience that my wife and I shared last week, one that I won't soon forget. We went to the current revival of Carousel. The songs and dancing were absolutely spectacular. One leaves the theater, or at least I did, humming "If I Loved You," "You'll Never Walk Alone," and even "June is Busting Out All Over." Once again, I started thinking of parallels to synagogue music. We too have rousing songs of thanksgiving and celebration, as well as plaintive melodies of yearning and reflection, some of them expressing love and the desire for love. Much of our best-loved synagogue music gives us strength and hope in the face of loneliness, of suffering, and of death. Infusing all of these is the experience or assurance of God's presence, and the palpable experience of a congregation joined together through music, words, shared longings, and the sheer fact of being in the same sacred space at the same moment. Whatever one's religious beliefs, one receives capital M meaning, capital C community, and a potent reminder that each of us is not alone. V'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata v'ad olam. Hashivenu elecha v'nashuva. Ledor vador nagit golecha. Bi'ado avkidruchi be'etishan v'ayira v'imruchi gviati Adonai li v'lo ira. The Jewish story that we sing together is larger than us. It will continue long after us, but we are part of it. We give it life as it gives us life. That is a lot of what we're doing when we sing in shul, I believe. One can walk through any storm with assurance like that. One is better able to give love and to receive love. So I'm confident that Judaism will remain strong, even in 21st century North America, because it answers basic human needs with experiences, beliefs, practices, and communities that are precious and unsurpassed in any other cultural religion. Conservative Judaism will remain strong because it offers meaning and community in a way that promises wholeness to modern selves, speaking simultaneously to hearts and souls and minds. And I'm pretty sure the synagogue will remain strong too, because it holds out the possibility of encounter with God and Torah, surrounded by Jews like us, for whom this encounter is both wonderful and difficult. To our chazanim, I once again say thank you for leading us on this path. To everyone here today, I say thank you for walking the path together with me. May we continue to do so together for many years to come. Thank you. And now we turn to the conferring of honors, the opportunity to publicly acclaim the long and distinguished careers of a select group of cantors who have left their mark on their communities. The honorary degrees which will be awarded today have been approved by the JTS Board of Trustees. The Talmud in Masachet Ta'anit tells us, in the name of Rabbi Ami, quote, "A person's prayer is not heard unless they take their soul in their hand, unless the soul accompanies the prayer. Words alone are not enough, says Rabbi Ami. Melodies added to the words are not enough. For prayer to be heard requires the involvement of the soul. Those who we are honoring today help us involve our souls in our prayer. Through their chanting, they give voice, not just to the words written on the printed page of the Siddur or the Machzor, but the words that are inscribed upon our hearts. Theirs is not merely an art or a talent, it is rather a gift, a very special gift from God. Each of our honorees has made an enduring contribution to the Cantors Assembly, to the conservative movement, and to the Jewish people. Each has brought unique abilities, resources, and commitment to the sacred task of serving the Jewish community. Each has strengthened the cause of normative centrist Judaism and prepared it for the challenges of the future. It gives me particular pleasure to note that this convocation marks the first time JTS is awarding honorary degrees to female cantors. Women have, all right. So I take it that applause signifies agreement with me that women have transformed the cantorial field with their tremendous talent and creativity in a way for which we are all grateful. We're delighted today to be able to acknowledge and thank these pioneering women for their contributions as cantors to Klal Yisrael, to the Jewish people. It's now my privilege to confer the honorary degrees. Assisting me with the honoring of our cantors today will be two JTS leaders who will read brief citations of the candidates: Rabbi Daniel Nevins, Dean of the Division of Religious Leadership and Pro Wrestling Dean of the Rabbinical School, and Chazan Nancy Abramson, Director of the H.O. Miller Cantorial School and College of Jewish Music, who is one of today's honorees. I now call upon them to join me on the podium. So Chazan Abramson just told me that she's used to being first in line, sat in the first seat on the first row throughout school. Her name begins with A.B., and she's going to be the first cantor that I call to receive her honorary degree today. So let me just say, come over here. Nancy, I have to say before all this assembled crowd that one of the reasons I go to work a happy person every day is because you're part of the team that leads JTS. Thank you for that. We often use the word beloved as an honorific, and then it's an exaggeration, but in this case we have a Chazan, a leader, a member of the JTS senior team who is truly beloved by her students, by her colleagues in administration, and by the faculty. And I couldn't imagine that we could have a more successful group here today. I want to thank you for all you do every single day. And now I'm going to turn the podium over to Rabbi Nevins, who's going to say something a little more formal about you, but I think also add a little bit of heartfelt greeting as well.
My dear friend and cherished colleague, Nancy.
There you go.
Cantor Abramson. Here's the formal part. After serving as cantor at 3 congregations for a total of more than 30 years, you are now director of the H.L. Miller Cantorial School of JTS. At JTS, you supervise all aspects of education for the next generation of cantors. You plan the curriculum, teach courses, hire faculty, organize concerts, including one this weekend, and recruit new students. A JTS graduate, you have served as an officer of the Cantors Assembly and were the first woman to serve as CA president. You also sit on the board of the Zamir Choral Foundation. And Nancy, your loving support for all of our students, both the cantorial students and the rabbinical students, is profoundly appreciated. You bring talent, heart, and a voice of wisdom, beauty, and compassion to our school. It is an honor and a pleasure to serve with you and to see you together, to work with you every day. Mazel tov, and thank you for all that you've done for all of us.
Chazan Neil Ben Isvi.
Chazan Ben Isvi. As Cantor of Congregation Ohev Shalom, Marlborough Jewish Center in New Jersey for 34 years, you participated in its growth from infancy to a thriving 1,000-family congregation, retiring in 2004. You reached every family through life cycle events. Training over 2,700 B'nai Mitzvah was your greatest love, and your adult Benot Mitzvah celebrations were a welcome event each spring. Escorting a synagogue group to Israel in 1987 for the 25th anniversary of the Cantors Assembly was an experience of a lifetime. Your connection to the center and its members remains very strong. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Chazan Ira Simon Bigeleisen.
Chazan Bigeleisen retired from Adat Ariel congregation of Valley Village, California in 2015 after a career spanning 35 years. You imparted your love of Judaism to thousands of adults and children. You taught them to love Jewish music, and you taught many to chant Torah and to lead services. You founded the Los Angeles Zimriya Chorale, created experimental services, and composed and recorded new and classical Jewish music. You served as cantor at community events such as the Voice of Ashkenaz and the rededication of the Reichstrasse Synagogue in Berlin, Germany. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Chazan Baruch Blum.
Chazan Blum, you have actively served for 43 years, 2 years in Staten Island and 41 years at Temple Beth Israel of Port Washington, New York, while also serving as tutor at Temple Beth David of Comac for 33 years. You have taught davening and laning to hundreds of children and adults and have nurtured a love of Jewish music. You creatively incorporated Israeli holiday melodies in services and employed beautiful Yiddish classics in leading the congregation in prayer. You perform weddings of former students and name babies of babies you named. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Chazan Bruce D. Braun.
Chazan Braun, you have served Shari Torah Synagogue in Canton, Ohio since 1976. You became the full-time cantor in 1981 and have been the congregation's spiritual leader since 2000. In addition to your synagogue duties, you presently serve as membership chair of the Cantors Assembly. You've always enjoyed the teaching aspect of your profession, and you feel a great sense of pride when people of all ages are able to participate in Judaism and make it a meaningful part of their lives. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Chazan Norman F. Brody.
Chazan Brody, as a child growing up in Chicago, you were mentored by Cantor Tevele Cohen and Cantor Philip Morantz, and at the College of Jewish Studies. You embarked on your career in opera and as a member of the Winged Victory Singers, while often serving synagogues as a guest cantor. You were full-time cantor in Andover, Massachusetts, and for the past 32 years at Temple Bethel, West Palm Beach, Florida. You are applauded for your work with children and have received many prestigious awards for your commitment and dedication to your community. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal tov.
Mazal tov. Chazan Joel Elliott Kaplan.
Chazan Kaplan, you grew up in Iowa and have been a cantor of Congregation Agudath Israel in Caldwell, New Jersey since 1982. A JTS graduate, you've also taught at JTS since 1994, made choral arrangements of over 100 Jewish songs, and directed the New Jersey Cantors Concert Ensemble. You currently lead 5 choirs for adults, teens, and children, and have performed repeatedly in Europe and the United States with the Zamir Chorale of Boston, Hazamir of New Jersey, and other groups as a soloist, conductor, choral singer, and instrumentalist. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Thank you. Chazan Kerry Cohen.
Chazan Cohen, Chazan of Congregation Beth Israel of Milwaukee for 21 years. My parents' Chazan for a few of those. You have taught and supervised over 70 adult and teen Torah readers. You have produced annual concerts featuring some of the greatest Chazanim, including a program for which you hosted the 60-voice Johannesburg Jewish Male Choir. You served on the Executive Council of the Cantors Assembly and on the Wisconsin Jewish Music Council and the Chicago-Milwaukee Association of Cantors. For 11 years, you also directed an adult special needs group at the local JCC. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal tov.
Mazal tov. Chazan Stephen W. Dress.
Chazan Dress, you were the beating heart of Temple Israel in Sharon, Massachusetts for 26 years, beautifully leading worshipers in prayer and teaching nearly 2,000 children. You lovingly shared in the joy that marked new life and celebrations and were there for family members soon after they learned difficult news. You led hundreds to Israel and inspired many to become skilled, knowledgeable daveners and Torah readers. Colleagues acknowledge you as a caring mentor who answered their call as Cantors Assembly Regional Chairman and New England Board of Cantors President. Thank you for your service, and Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Thank you. Chazan Stephen Friedman.
Chazan Friedman, as cantor of Temple Sinai in Dresher, Pennsylvania, you have enriched the spiritual lives of your congregants through heartfelt davening and through the teaching of students of all ages, from children in the preschool, through seniors in Chazak, B'nai Mitzvah, and a student Torah reading club, and directing junior and adult choirs. An accomplished composer and folk singer, you have had several of your works published by the Cantors Assembly. You have served the CA in leadership positions both regionally and nationally. You are a compassionate and caring pastor. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal tov.
Mazal tov. Thank you. Chazan Bruce Halev.
Chazan Halev, you have served as Cantor of Congregation Habonim in New York City since 1983. You have a passion for working with students of all ages in deepening their connection to Judaism. You believe that there is nothing more vital to Jewish worship than music, and that it is at the very heart of spirituality, bringing joy, personal insight, and a unique sense of community to all participants, while connecting people deeply to their Jewish roots. You are involved in all areas of synagogue life. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazel Tov.
Chazan Michael Stephen Krausman.
Chazan Krausman, currently serving in Nebraska and previously in Florida and New Jersey, you communicate and exemplify the spirituality and meaning of our sacred liturgy and tradition. A JTS graduate, you forge an eternal bond with your B'nai Mitzvah students, and you have taught many of your congregants to lead services, read Torah, and appreciate our liturgical heritage. You have raised funds for youth experiences through outstanding concerts. You spread awareness of the Shoah to the community at large. You engage individuals of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds with love, sensitivity, and humor. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Chazan Mark H. Kula.
Chazan Kula, following 23 years as Cantor of Beit Shirah Congregation in Miami, Florida, you are now in your 6th year as service as the synagogue's spiritual leader. A graduate of JTS, you integrate a love of people, Torah, music, and innovative programming in building a Kehillah Kedoshah. You've developed do-it-yourself programs, empowering individuals to take charge of their Jewish lives. A community activist, you are a member of Miami's Rabbinical Association and the Cantors Assembly. You promote meaning and purpose, tikkun olam, social justice, and Israel, and enlighten all to the beauty of Jewish wisdom. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov.
Chazan Bradley Kurland.
Chazan Kurland, 34 years ago, after graduating from JTS, you moved to the Seattle area, where you became Cantor of Herzl Ner Tamid Conservative Synagogue. You have trained scores of B'nai Mitzvah and are now working with their children. You have officiated at life cycle events from birth to grave. You have performed with your accordion in many venues, entertaining groups from tots to senior adults. You visit the sick and console mourners. You are leader of the daily morning minyan, read Torah, and teach Torah. You revel in your interactions with the community. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Chazan Ivor Yitzchak Lichterman.
Chazan Lichterman, born in Cape Town, South Africa, you and your brother were nurtured as chazanim by your father, the last chazan of Warsaw's famed Nozick Synagogue. A chazan for 46 years, you served in Connecticut, Arizona, and for the past 7 years as spiritual leader and chazan of Congregation B'nai Israel in Sylvania, Ohio. You've released cantorial recordings and appeared in concert and on TV. In 2009, you and your brother led services at your father's Nozick Synagogue during the emotional opening ceremony of the Cantors Assembly Historic Poland Mission. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Chazan Bernard Lowe.
Chazan Lo, you served with great dedication and devotion as cantor at Adath Israel in Marion, Pennsylvania for the past 25 years, and before that at Shearith Israel in Dallas, Texas, and Temple Emmanuel in Johannesburg, South Africa. You have served the Jewish community for a total of 37 years. In that time, you have brought vocal and musical excellence to those congregations, teaching and inspiring countless young people and guiding them through B'nai Mitzvah. And you have shared joys and sorrows of thousands of members of those eminent communities. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Chazan Jeffrey Stewart Myers.
Chazan Myers, you have begun a new chapter in life as a kolbo in Pittsburgh, having previously served congregations in New York and New Jersey with distinction. A graduate of JTS, you are most proud of being a pioneer as one of the first Cantor educator graduates, infusing generations of students, young and old, with the love of davening and laning, choral singing, and performance of mitzvot. You have crafted experimental services and organized innovative holiday programming. You continue to be forward-thinking, creating new and exciting experiences for each generation. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Chazan Jeffrey Nadel.
Chazan Nadel, you are a gifted cantor and concert performer. You served as cantor of Beth Shalom Congregation in Washington, D.C. for 32 years, and you have appeared on the concert stage throughout the United States, Israel, Australia, England, South Africa, Poland, Russia, Romania, and the former Yugoslavia. Your repertoire includes music of the Synagogue, American and Jewish folk music, classical music, and opera. You earned a bachelor's degree from JTS, where you were awarded the Emanuel Halperin Memorial Award for outstanding scholarship and musical ability. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people. Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov. Chazan Elaine Barbara Shapiro.
Chazan Shapiro, the first conservative woman cantor in the United States. You graduated from JTS's Seminary College of Jewish Music and studied at the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia. You served Beit Am Shalom in White Plains, New York, as well as Temple Bethel in West Palm Beach and Temple Sinai in Delray Beach, Florida. Currently, you serve numerous independent and assisted living communities and nursing homes. You are on the board of the JCC in Boca Raton, Florida, and are chair of the Southeast region of the Cantors Assembly. Thank you for your service to the Jewish people, and Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. I'm now pleased to call to the podium Rabbi Randall J. Konigsberg, who will accept an honorary degree diploma on behalf of his sister, Chazan Linda Kolkin Shivers, whose illness precluded her attendance here today. We wish her refuah shlema, a full and speedy recovery.
And let me just add to that all of the honorees are thinking about Linda now. She's in our hearts. She's been one of us for so long, and we as the Chancellor said, wish her a speedy and full recovery. Chazan Shivers, a trailblazer for women cantors, was one of the first female graduates of JTS's Seminary College of Jewish Music to serve as a chazan. She has modeled equality and menschlichkeit for her female students throughout her career, leading most women and girls in her community to engage as equals in Jewish study, to wear talitot and kippot, and lay tefillin. Cantor of Congregation Neve Shalom in Portland, Oregon, and 2 other conservative synagogues over 3 decades, she established a well-respected Jewish concert series and co-founded the Women Cantors Network and an interfaith women's clergy group. We thank you for her service to the Jewish people, and we wish a mazal tov to Linda.
Thank you, Rabbi Nevins and Chazan Abramson, for serving as the sponsors of today's honorees. I now ask all of our honorees to please rise and remain standing. In bestowing these degrees, JTS acknowledges its debt to you, who are at once its students, its partners, and its emissaries. Our community would truly be bereft and impoverished without you. We could not flourish without the kind of dedication that you epitomize. May you continue to find blessing in your endeavors and enjoy good health. May you accept this tribute as a challenge to continue with vigor and insight the work you have done with such success. And may we together be granted the privilege of seeing a world ruled by justice and compassion, seeking the Almighty, and working to fulfill God's will. In recognition of your continued devotion to your sacred task, the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Theological Seminary has voted to confer upon you these honorary doctorates. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in the JTS Board of Trustees by the State of New York, it is now my privilege to admit you to the degree of Doctor of Music, honoris causa. Congratulations to you all. So I ask the families to please, and friends, please remain standing. I ask the honorees to be seated. This is a JTS commencement tradition, as you know, and one that I wholeheartedly endorse. While we honor these distinguished cantors for their contributions to Jewish life, we also honor their families who have sustained them, nourished them, and at times made sacrifices for them. That is why you, the families of these leaders, are as much a part of this celebration as they are. We honor you as we honor them. Thank you very much, and mazal tov. The families may be seated. So this is where I would turn the podium over to Alan Levine, and I will now continue the program in Alan Levine's place, and again, wish him a refuah shlema. I'm pleased to call now on the chorus of the H.O. Miller Cantorial School to sing Hallelujah, Psalm 150, the culmination of the Book of Psalms, as a tribute to today's honorees. It's very appropriately a celebration of human musical creativity and achievement in bringing us closer to God. The chorus will again be conducted by Chazan Natasha Hirschhorn and accompanied by cantorial student Jacob Sandler and Chazan Jeff Warschauer.
כי יעוזו, הללו, בגבורותיו, הללו, כרוב גודלו. הללו, אל בקודשו, הללו, כי יעוזו, הללו, בגבורותיו, הללו, כרוב גודלו. הללו, בתק השופר, הללו, בנבל וכינור, הללו, בתוף ומחול, הללו, במינים ועוגב. הללו, בצלצלי שמה, הללו, בצלצלי תרועה,
Thank you to the choir and conductor and accompanists. It's now my privilege to call upon Chazan Joel Kaplan, Cantor of Congregation Agudat Israel in Caldwell, New Jersey, who received an honorary degree a few moments ago, who will speak on behalf of his colleagues.
Chancellor Eisen, President Chazan Pomerantz Burrow, Mr. Gary, Rabbi Nevins, Chazan Abramson, Chazanim, families, and guests. 8 things we've seen in our years as Chazanim, in no particular order, and God willing, in less than 6 minutes. Number 1, as with any facet of life, clear communication matters. Bernard Lowe writes, "A young couple came up for their ufruf. Our elderly Baal Kriya whispered to them what he always whispered to people coming up for a Torah aliyah. Take the end of your tallis, touch the Torah, kiss, and then read the first Torah blessing." The young couple took the groom's tallis, touched the Torah, turned and kissed each other, and then recited the bracha. It was so sweet. Number 2, skill matters, davening skill, vocal skill, but a lot of other things matter too. I am very pleased that my parents, Dr. Richard and Ellen Kaplan, are here from Iowa. After their 50th anniversary almost 16 years ago, my mother was asked, "What advice do you have for your children?" She said, "Just be nice." A lot of our work isn't about music. It's just being nice to people. Ira Beagleisen writes, "One time I was called to a death watch at midnight. Gradually, as the night progressed, all the other clergy left, and I was the only one with the family. I stayed until the mortuary arrived about 5 o'clock a.m. Later, I heard the widow describe me as an angel. I know I'm no angel, but it moved me deeply to have someone think so." Number 3, perspective matters. Everyone looks at the world through her or his own lens. It was 2 hours before our Hazamir teen choir and I were to board a bus to perform at Carnegie Hall. Among all the other details, my dress shoes hadn't been shined in months, and I was to conduct one of the pieces. I ran to the shoe repair shop across the street from the shul, and I said, "Mr. Ippolito, please, would you shine these up quickly?" He said, "What's the hurry?" I said, "Well, I'm conducting a piece in a concert at Carnegie Hall in just a few hours." He drew himself up and said, "At Carnegie Hall, everyone will be looking at your shoes." And from Bruce Halev, after my very first service at the new congregation, a couple came up to meet me. Turns out they were the parents of Henry Winkler, who had become very famous for his role on the show Happy Days. The woman said, "Hello, nice to meet you. I am Ilse Winkler, and I am the mother of the Fans." And then her husband interjected, "Und I am the producer." He can do the accent better than I can, I'm sure. Number 4, it's good to have colleagues. Stephen Friedman writes, "When I started at my first congregation in Rhode Island, I received a letter of welcome from our colleague and fellow honoree, Steve Dress, who had assumed his first position in neighboring Warwick, Rhode Island 1 month earlier. We have been close friends ever since, and he never fails to remind me that he has 1 month's seniority over me in the cantorate." 5, we have all been called upon to share our knowledge, but not always in the way that we expect. Steve Dress writes, "A bat mitzvah dad asked me, 'Cantor Dress, may a non-Jew light bat mitzvah candles during my daughter's bat mitzvah luncheon at the XYZ Country Club?' My response was, 'Good question. Luckily for you, only a non-Jew may light the candle.'" Six, it's been said before here, but we never know how we are going to touch lives. Nancy Abramson writes, "At the end of a hospital visit to a congregation member, I sang a Misha Berach prayer for her. I was about to leave when a quiet voice from the other side of the room said, 'Oh, could you come sing to me too?' I went over and sang in Hebrew to the non-Jewish patient who closed her eyes and smiled broadly." 7, it's wonderful to teach and influence future generations. Some students of mine are in this room. I'm sure that all of my colleagues have had students through the years. I know I've heard thousands of bar mitzvah students, bat mitzvah students, etc. Students who are here from JTS. My father, Dick Kaplan, is a retired dermatologist, and he says a lot of a dermatologist's work is removing warts. It's not especially challenging or exciting, but it needs doing. So, some of your work will be uplifting, exciting, spiritual, and noble. And for the other things, find a way to deal with the warts. 8, finally, No one criticizes chazanim like other chazanim. Jeff Myers writes, I was privileged to study with David Kusevitsky. Once I was so bold as to ask to learn with him Lov's Ma Godlu. Without thinking, I foolishly remarked that I had listened to the recording made by his brother. Without missing a beat, he said, he sings it a bit too fast. Thank you to my parents, my wife, my son and daughter who are here, and Mazal Tov to all of us.
No one has to follow that, which is a very good thing. Certainly not me. So the convocation is now concluded, but the celebration begins, or continues. I ask that all of you please remain in your seats until the procession has left the sanctuary, and then please join us in the ballroom downstairs for a reception tendered in tribute to the honorees. Allow me to note that there will be a mincha service here in the synagogue sanctuary at 5:45 p.m. Mazal Tov to everyone.